The conference room at Camp Halvorsen smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood, the kind of room where decisions were made quickly and egos often arrived before facts. A long table stretched beneath fluorescent lights, flags standing rigid in the corners as if listening. Officers filtered in one by one, boots steady, uniforms crisp. Conversations were low, confident, rank carried weight here, and everyone knew where they stood. She arrived last, not late, precise, exactly on time. Captain Elena Ward paused briefly at the doorway, scanning the room the way professionals did, exits noted, faces catalogued, posture assessed. She wore the same camouflage as everyone else, name taped clean, insignia modest. Nothing flashy, nothing that demanded attention. And yet, when she stepped inside, the hum of conversation dipped just a fraction, so slight most didn't notice. She took an empty seat halfway down the table, set her folder neatly in front of her, and folded her hands. Calm, composed, watching. At the head of the table, Marine Captain Ryan Kessler leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. He was known for his confidence, some called it leadership, others called it arrogance. He'd earned his reputation through loud briefings and louder victories, and he wore his authority like a badge of honor. His gaze flicked toward Elena, lingered on her uniform, then slid to the modest rank pinned at her collar. A smirk touched his lips. "Didn't know we were inviting observers now," he said, voice light, joking, but loud enough for the room. A few officers chuckled politely. Elena didn't react. She simply looked up, eyes steady, unreadable. Kessler continued, enjoying the attention. "No offense," he added, waving a hand in mock apology, "but this briefing's pretty advanced. Strategic operations, usually above entry-level ranks." The chuckles grew louder this time. Someone cleared their throat. Another officer shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. In rooms like this, calling out a senior officer, even jokingly, was risky. But Kessler outranked most people here, and he knew it. Elena tilted her head slightly, as if considering whether the comment required a response. Then she returned her gaze to the folder in front of her, calm as still water. That, more than anything, unsettled a few people. Major Lewis, seated 2 chairs away, leaned forward. "Captain Kessler, let's keep this professional." Kessler raised his hands in surrender, still smiling. "Relax, Major. Just breaking the ice." His eyes flicked back to Elena. "Right, Captain Ward, was it?" "Yes," she replied. Her voice was even, controlled. No hint of irritation, no defensiveness. "Good," Kessler said. "Then you won't mind sitting in. Might learn a thing or two." A pause followed, not awkward, heavy. Elena met his gaze fully now. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, but there was something else beneath them, experience. Not the kind that came from medals or speeches, but from moments that didn't make it into reports. "I'm sure I will," she said simply. The room settled as the briefing began. Maps lit up the screen, routes highlighted, objectives outlined. Kessler took the lead, pacing as he spoke, voice confident as he explained troop movements and extraction windows. He spoke fast, assuming understanding, expecting agreement. Elena listened. She didn't interrupt, didn't correct. She made a few notes, precise and minimal. When others nodded along, she watched their faces. When someone hesitated, she noticed. Her silence wasn't ignorance, it was calculation. Halfway through the presentation, Kessler pointed to a highlighted zone on the map. "This sector's secure," he said. "Low resistance. We move through here fast." Elena's pen paused. She looked up, eyes narrowing just slightly. "But still," she said. "Nothing." Major Lewis noticed. He'd seen that look before, not often, but enough to recognize it. He glanced at her insignia again, then back to the map, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. Kessler finished his briefing with a flourish. Questions. Silence. Then, calmly, Elena closed her folder. "Yes," she said. Every head turned. Kessler raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead." She stood, not abruptly, but with quiet confidence. "Your assumption about Sector 3 being secure," she said, voice steady, "is based on outdated reconnaissance." A ripple moved through the room. Kessler scoffed lightly. "Intel was cleared this morning." Elena nodded. "The surface intel, yes. But not the subterranean routes. There's a supply corridor beneath the eastern ridge. It's been active for 48 hours. The room went still. Kessler's smile faded, just a little. "And how," he asked, tone sharp now, "would you know that?" Elena met his gaze, unflinching. Because, she said, I was there. Silence fell. Not the polite kind, but the kind that presses against your ears. Scene 1 ended not with laughter, but with the first crack in the room's certainty, and the beginning of something none of them expected. The silence that followed Elena's words was thick enough to feel. A few officers exchanged glances. Someone shifted a chair. The hum of the projector suddenly seemed loud. Kessler straightened, recovering quickly. You were there, he repeated, as if tasting the words. That sector has been restricted for weeks. It has, Elena agreed. Which is why the movement wasn't picked up by standard patrols. Major Lewis leaned forward, fingers steepled. Captain Ward, he said carefully, are you saying the intel briefing missed an active route? Yes, sir, Elena replied. She reached into her folder and slid out a thin stack of satellite prints and hand-marked overlays. She didn't rush. Every motion was deliberate. The corridor runs here, she said, placing a finger beneath the map's eastern ridge. It's concealed by terrain masking and thermal dampening. Supplies move at night. Small loads. Frequent. Kessler stepped closer to the screen, frowning. That corridor was collapsed years ago. Elena shook her head once. It was partially collapsed. Cleared again 3 months ago. And you're certain? Kessler pressed. She met his stare. I walked it. The room absorbed that. No one laughed now. Colonel Harrington, who had been silent until this moment, cleared his throat. Captain Ward, he said, voice calm but authoritative, your file indicates you were reassigned recently. Your last unit. Elena hesitated. Not long, just enough to signal that the answer mattered. Joint Task Force. Special Reconnaissance. A murmur rippled across the table. Kessler's jaw tightened. Major Lewis glanced toward the colonel. Sir, if she's right, then our timeline is wrong, Colonel Harrington finished. He looked back to Elena. Show us. Elena stepped to the console. She didn't ask for permission, it was already implied. With practiced ease, she overlaid her images onto the main map, toggling between infrared, elevation, and movement patterns. Red markers appeared, small, precise, impossible to ignore. These gaps, she said, pointing, line up with supply drop intervals. They're not random, they're disciplined. The room leaned in as one. Kessler crossed his arms. Even if that's true, he said, forcing calm, it doesn't change the primary objective. It does, Elena replied. Because moving through Sector 3 fast means moving through it blind. That landed. Colonel Harrington studied the screen, eyes narrowing. What's your recommendation? Elena didn't answer immediately. She scanned the faces, evaluating, measuring resistance, gauging who would listen. Then she spoke. Delay the push by 12 hours. Insert a recon element along the ridge at dusk. Confirm tunnel access points. Collapse them before main movement. Kessler shook his head. 12 hours gives the opposition time to reposition. Or to expose themselves, Elena countered. They'll try to move supplies before we seal the corridor. The colonel looked thoughtful. And you're confident we can confirm this without tipping them off? Yes, sir. How? Elena paused. This time, the hesitation was heavier. I'll go in, she said. A beat, then another. Kessler let out a short laugh. With respect, this isn't a solo operation. Elena turned to him fully now. With respect, Captain, it already was. The words weren't sharp, but they cut. Major Lewis exhaled slowly. Sir, her data aligns with anomalies we've been seeing. Minor delays, missing signals. We couldn't explain them. Colonel Harrington nodded once. Captain Ward, he said, why wasn't this corridor reported sooner? Elena's eyes flickered, not with fear, but memory. Because it wasn't supposed to exist. The mission I was on wasn't meant to be acknowledged. That answer settled the room into something quieter, more serious. Kessler stared at her, recalculating. The joke he'd made earlier felt distant now, irrelevant. He glanced at her insignia again, as if expecting it to change. Colonel Harrington stood. All right, he said. We adjust. Captain Ward will brief recon on entry parameters. Kessler opened his mouth, then closed it. Yes, sir, he said finally. As the officers began to move, Elena gathered her papers. Major Lewis leaned in as she passed. You didn't have to hold back earlier, he murmured. Elena gave a small, knowing smile. Sometimes, she said, it's better to let people underestimate you. Across the room, Kessler watched her, no smirk now, only questions. And for the first time since she'd entered, the room understood. Whatever rank was on her collar, it wasn't the whole story. The meeting room had changed its posture. Chairs scraped softly as officers settled back into their seats, no longer casual, no longer amused. The air felt tighter now, focused. The joke from earlier hung unspoken, like an echo no one wanted to acknowledge. Colonel Harrington remained standing at the head of the table, hands resting lightly on the edge. His eyes moved from the map to Elena, then around the room. "There's one more matter," he said. "Before we finalize assignments." Kessler straightened instinctively. Old habits. Command reflexes. The colonel turned slightly toward Elena. "Captain Ward, your presence here wasn't incidental." Elena didn't react outwardly, but she felt the shift. This was it, the moment that usually stayed buried beneath classification stamps and redacted lines. Colonel Harrington tapped a key on the console. The main screen went dark for a heartbeat, then illuminated again, not with maps, but with a personnel profile. Name: Ward, Elena M. Rank: redacted. Service history: classified. A murmur rippled through the room. Kessler leaned forward. "Sir." Colonel Harrington raised a hand. "Most of you know Captain Ward by the rank she wears today. What you don't know, and what you were not cleared to know until now, is the authority she carries outside this room." He glanced at Elena. "You may proceed." Elena stepped forward, stopping beside the screen. She didn't look at the file. She looked at the people. "I don't usually introduce myself this way," she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight now, earned, not demanded. "But context matters." She reached up and pressed her thumb against a small scanner on the console. A soft tone sounded. The screen changed. Clearance levels appeared. Codes most people in the room had only ever seen referenced, never displayed. Joint command symbols followed. Naval aviation. Special operations. Strategic oversight. Kessler felt his stomach tighten. Colonel Harrington spoke again. "Captain Ward operates under direct joint authority. When assigned, her operational rank supersedes field command." The room froze. Kessler stared at the screen, then at Elena's collar. The insignia suddenly felt misleading, almost ironic. "You outrank me," he said quietly. Elena met his gaze. "Only when it matters." Silence fell. Not awkward, not tense. Absolute. The colonel continued. "Captain Ward was embedded in multiple cross-branch operations, some of which you've studied as case examples. Others you never will." Someone swallowed audibly. Kessler stood slowly. Not as a challenge, as acknowledgement. "Captain Ward," he said, voice stripped of bravado, "my earlier comment was inappropriate." Elena regarded him for a moment. Not cold, not triumphant. "Apology accepted," she said. "But unnecessary." He blinked. "Unnecessary. Yes," she replied. "You judged what you could see. That's human." She paused. "The problem is stopping there." The words settled into the room like doctrine. Colonel Harrington nodded once. "This briefing is concluded," he said. "Captain Ward will have full cooperation." As officers filed out, the energy followed Elena. Conversations stopped when she passed. Eyes tracked her, not with curiosity now, but respect. Kessler lingered near the doorway. "Captain," he said when the room was nearly empty. She turned. "I built my career on being the loudest voice in the room," he admitted. Didn't realize how quiet real authority could be. Elena considered that. "Authority doesn't need volume," she said. "It needs responsibility." He nodded, absorbing the lesson. Later, alone in the corridor, Elena paused beneath a strip of harsh white light. For a moment, she rested her hand against the wall, grounding, familiar. The reveal always carried a cost. Distance, separation, but it also carried clarity. Down the hall, a young lieutenant whispered to another, "That was her. The one from the briefing last year." Elena heard. She always did. She continued walking, boots steady, shoulders relaxed. Behind her, the room where laughter once lived stood silent, not out of fear, but understanding. Her rank had never been the insignia on her collar. It was the weight she carried when things went wrong. And today, for once, the room had learned that lesson the hard way.